Please, young man, please don't leave me. I can't get up. I can't breathe. Ma'am, I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. I don't want to die here. You're not going to be alone. Stay with me. A freezing night. A gas station in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. An elderly white woman lay on the ground near the air pump, barely able to breathe. A young black man stopped when everyone else kept moving. Please, she whispered. I need water. I have medicine, but I can't swallow it without water. Malik Carter looked at the crumpled dollar bill in his hand. It was his last dollar. It was supposed to buy water for his sick grandmother, waiting at home. But the woman in front of him needed it now. So Malik spent the last dollar he had on a stranger. He did not know her name when he stopped. He did not know what she had done with her life. He did not know who her son was. He only knew she needed help. And by the time the story was over, the choice he made with that single dollar would reach far beyond that gas station. Most people in Malik's neighborhood had learned not to dream too loudly. Dreams cost money, time, transportation, and room to fail. Malik did not have much of any of those things. But he could not afford to stop believing completely. Malik was 18 years old. He slept on a pull-out couch in the living room of a small house in Baton Rouge. The couch springs pressed into his back every night. The heater rattled through the colder months and barely pushed enough warm air past the kitchen. He slept there because the second bedroom belonged to his grandmother's medical equipment, an oxygen concentrator, a blood sugar monitor, boxes of insulin pens on a folding table. Every morning followed the same routine. 2 packets of instant oatmeal, one for Malik, one for his grandmother, Ruth Carter. He added cinnamon to hers because that was how she liked it. Then he placed her pills beside the bowl in the order he had memorized years earlier. He carried the tray into her room. Ruth was already awake, staring at the ceiling. Some mornings, she looked strong. This was not one of them. Morning, Grandma. Morning, baby. Her voice was thin. She tried to sit up. Malik set the tray down, slipped one arm carefully behind her back, and lifted her against the pillows. She weighed less than she used to. He noticed. He said nothing. Malik ate his own oatmeal, standing at the kitchen sink, quickly, because there was always somewhere he needed to be and some number he needed to calculate. His eyes moved toward the mason jar on top of the refrigerator. $38 remained. The electric bill was overdue. Ruth's insulin needed to be refilled soon. There was not enough money for both. There was almost never enough for both. Beside the jar, held to the refrigerator by a chipped pelican magnet, was a letter. The paper had faded. The folds had softened from being opened and closed too many times. It was an acceptance letter from the local community college, pre-engineering program. Every morning, Malik touched that letter lightly with one fingertip. Almost like a prayer, he was afraid to say out loud. I had been accepted. He simply could not afford to attend. Getting to work meant a long walk through cracked sidewalks and past boarded storefronts with faded lease signs. He passed a church that offered free meals on weekends. He passed children on the street who were supposed to be in school. Near one house, Denise Porter stood on her porch, watering the one plant she had managed to keep alive. You eating, baby? Yes, ma'am. Malik smiled, nodded, and lied. Then he kept walking. His thoughts went where they often went, to his mother. She had left when Malik was 4 years old. She walked out of the front door with a duffel bag and never came back. No calls, no letters. Malik did not spend much energy hating her. Anger required energy he could not spare. What he carried instead was quieter, a question that had lived behind his ribs since childhood. Was I not enough? He never said it aloud. Ruth filled the empty space his mother left behind. She became the person who raised him, protected him, corrected him, encouraged him, and loved him through every season. Malik believed he owed her more than he could ever repay. The car wash sat near Highway 61. Hand wash only. Cash only. $6.50 an hour, paid under the table. Malik scrubbed sport utility vehicles and sedans beside his best friend, Andre Mills. Most customers did not tip. Some barely looked at them. One customer in a Mercedes tossed his keys toward Malik, without making eye contact, as if he were handing something to a piece of furniture. Malik caught the keys. He said nothing. Then he washed the car until it shone. During his break, Malik leaned against a cinder block wall and pulled a small composition notebook from his pocket. The cover was bent. The pages were stained by water. Inside were pencil drawings of engines, suspension systems, mechanical improvements, and ideas he had been working through alone. One sketch showed a redesigned sprinkler nozzle that could use less water while covering a wider area. Andre leaned over and squinted at the drawing. "Man, you're going to be the first engineer who smells like tire shine." Malik laughed, but the notebook mattered to him. It was proof that his mind could build things even when his life gave him almost nothing to build with. It reminded him that he was more than a teenager, scrubbing somebody else's car. One day, maybe, if the numbers ever worked. At the end of one shift, the owner counted out $26 in small bills. Malik took $25 and hid it inside his sock. That money was for Ruth's insulin. I kept one folded dollar in his pocket, just in case. When he got home, Ruth was having a difficult night. Her blood sugar had climbed. Malik checked the monitor, adjusted her pillows, heated a can of soup and poured it into her favorite mug, the one with the faded sunflower on the side. Ruth ate slowly. Her hands trembled around the mug. A little soup spilled onto the blanket. She looked embarrassed. Malik wiped it away without saying anything, as if it were nothing. As if it did not break his heart a little every time. When she finished eating, Ruth reached out and squeezed his hand. "You're the best thing I ever did, Malik." I wanted to answer with something big enough to match what she meant to him. Nothing came, so he squeezed her hand back and nodded. Later, Malik sat alone on the porch. A street light flickered nearby. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. The air was cold. At 18, he should have been thinking about college, friends, and a future that felt wide open. Instead, he was wondering whether the pharmacy might let him split a payment on insulin. Malik did not complain. He did not have much time for complaining. He just kept moving, and he had no idea that on another freezing walk home, everything would change because of $1 and one stranger he had never met. The strange part was that he almost walked past her. Almost. I was coming home after extra hours, unloading crates at a neighborhood grocery store. The work had earned him $10 in cash. His back hurt. His fingers felt stiff. I was tired in the kind of way sleep does not always fix. He stopped at a gas station because Ruth had asked him for a bottle of water. Just water. The one small thing he could still promise her without doing math first. Malik had $1 in his pocket. Exactly what he hoped would be enough. The gas station was quiet. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A few cars sat near the pumps. Inside, the clerk was looking at his phone. The rest of the world appeared to be minding its own business. Then Malik heard a voice. "Help! Somebody, please." The sound was weak, almost carried away by the wind. "Please, I can't get up." Malik turned. An elderly white woman was partly collapsed on the curb near the air pump. She wore a wool coat. One shoe had come off and lay on the cold pavement nearby. Her hands shook violently. One hand pressed against her chest. The other tried to hold her body upright against the concrete. Her face looked gray. Her eyes were half closed and unfocused. She was shivering so hard that her teeth chattered. Her lips were beginning to turn blue. She murmured a name. Maybe her son's. Maybe someone from long ago. She did not seem to know exactly where she was. Her breaths came short and uneven. Each one sounded weaker than the one before. For a 74-year-old woman lying on freezing concrete, the danger was real. A man sitting in a pickup truck looked through his windshield, saw her, and drove away. A woman pushing a stroller glanced toward the curb, then hurried on. A teenager on a bicycle rode past without slowing. 3 people. 3 opportunities to stop. Nobody did. Malik stood at the edge of the parking lot. Every practical thought in his mind told him to keep walking. He had $1. His own grandmother was home waiting for water. This woman was not his responsibility. A voice inside him, not cruel, just tired, told him something that made sense. You cannot save everyone. You can barely save yourself. Then another voice answered. Ruth's voice. If you can help, you help. That's part of what you owe for being alive. Malik looked at the woman again. Her thin arms reminded him of Ruth. So did the fragile frame and the way her body seemed to be fighting a battle it could not win by itself. A thought hit Malik hard. This could be Grandma, alone, on cold ground, waiting for someone to decide she mattered enough to stop. Then the woman slumped farther. Her eyes closed. Her hand slipped away from the curb. Her body began to fall forward. Malik ran. He reached her before her face struck the pavement. One hand caught her shoulder. The other supported her back. She felt frighteningly light beneath the wool coat. Her skin was ice cold. "Ma'am, can you hear me? Stay with me." Her eyes opened, cloudy at first, then frightened, then slowly focused on him. She grabbed his sleeve with surprising strength. "Please don't leave me. I can't find my phone. I don't know how I got here." "It's okay, ma'am. I've got you. You're not alone." Malik found her missing shoe nearby and gently slid it back onto her foot. As she shifted, something fell from her coat pocket. A white handkerchief, gold thread, the initials ML embroidered in one corner. Malik picked it up and placed it in his pocket. I would return it once she was safe. "I'm scared," the woman whispered. "I know, ma'am, but I'm here now." Even through the confusion, Malik noticed something unusual about her. When she said thank you, the words carried a steadiness that did not fit the weakness of her body. There was something practiced in the way she spoke, a quiet authority, as if she had spent years in rooms where people listened when she talked. Her body was failing her, but some deep sense of dignity remained untouched. Inside the gas station, the clerk had noticed them through the glass. I did not come outside. The cold was getting worse, and then the woman's shivering began to slow. That frightened Malik more than the shaking had. He looked toward the store, then back at the woman, then at the $1 in his pocket. I made a choice, but what happened next was not only about kindness. It was about what kindness can cost when someone decides you do not look like the kind of person who helps. Malik pulled off his hoodie, the warmest layer he had, and wrapped it around the woman's shoulders. She tried to push it back. He shook his head. "I run warm. I'm okay." I was shivering almost immediately. Malik helped her stand, her knees folded beneath her. He caught her again, shifted her weight against his side, and let her hold tightly to his arm. Slowly, one careful step at a time, he guided her toward the store entrance. That was when everything nearly went wrong. A white man came out of the store carrying a six-pack. I was in his 40s, wearing work boots. His name was Brett Lawson. He saw a young black man gripping an elderly white woman who looked confused and could barely stand. And before asking what had happened, his mind completed the story for him. Brett stepped into the doorway. His chest came forward. His jaw tightened. "Hey, what are you doing to her?" Malik stopped. His stomach dropped. Not because he had never heard that tone before, because he knew it too well. I had heard versions of it in stores when security followed him through aisles. I had seen it when strangers held their bags tighter as he walked past. It was the sound of someone deciding what you were before you had spoken. "I'm helping her, sir. She fell. She needs somewhere warm to sit." Brett did not move. He leaned toward the woman. "Ma'am, is this kid bothering you? Did he hurt you?" She whispered something too softly to understand. Her hand tightened around Malik's arm, not pulling away, holding closer. But Brett did not read trust. He read fear. I took out his phone. "I'm calling the police." 3 words. Sometimes 3 words are enough to change the meaning of an entire scene. One moment, you are a person helping somebody stand. The next, you are being described as a suspect. Malik's heart hammered. Every instinct built from years of watching how misunderstandings could grow told him to release her. Step away. Disappear. Protect yourself. I knew what this could become. A misunderstanding. A call. Police lights. Handcuffs. Something worse. The safest choice for Malik was to walk away. But the woman was leaning against him with almost all of her weight. If he released her, she would fall. Her legs could not hold her. Her lips were still blue. Her breathing was still shallow. Her hand still gripped his sleeve as if he were the only solid thing left in the world. Walk away and protect yourself. Stay and protect her. There was no choice that guaranteed both. Malik looked at Brett, then at the phone, then at the elderly woman's face. He chose. I did not let go. Sir, please, look at her. She's freezing. She needs help. I'm only trying to get her inside. Call whoever you want, but please let me get her to a chair first. His voice did not shake. His hands did. Another man appeared inside the doorway. Owen Becker, the gas station clerk, had been watching through the glass. For a long, awful moment, Owen said nothing. Malik's future seemed to hang inside that silence. One careless sentence from the clerk could change everything. Then Owen spoke. The kid's been helping her. I saw it from inside. Leave him alone. Brett hesitated. He looked at Malik, then at Owen, then at the woman. Slowly he lowered his phone. I did not apologize. He simply stepped aside, walked to his truck, and drove away. Malik exhaled slowly. His hands were still shaking, not only from the cold, from adrenaline, from the familiar exhaustion of being seen as dangerous while trying to do something good. He helped the woman inside and lowered her carefully into a chair near the counter. I did not complain about what had just happened. I did not demand an apology. He focused on her. I need my medicine, she whispered. My heart. I have pills, but I can't swallow them without water. Malik looked toward the cooler. The cheapest bottle cost $1.09. He had $1. He turned toward Owen. Can I get a bottle of water for her? I'm 9 cents short. Owen shrugged. Price is the price. Malik looked at the crumpled dollar in his hand. That dollar was for Ruth. Her water. The one thing she had asked him for. The one thing Malik had believed he could still give her. Now a stranger needed it more urgently. Malik placed the bill on the counter. I'll figure out the rest. Something changed in Owen's expression. Maybe it was shame. Maybe recognition. He waved off the missing cents and slid the bottle across the counter. Malik opened it. He helped the woman drink in small, careful sips. Her shaking fingers found a pill case clipped inside her coat. Her emergency heart medicine had been with her the entire time. In her confusion, she had not been able to find it. Malik helped her take the pill. He held the bottle while she swallowed. Then he waited. He watched her face. He counted her breaths without realizing he was counting. And he stayed with her. I did not complain that he needed to get home. I did not keep checking the time. He sat near her and spoke softly. He asked her name, where she lived, whether there was somebody he could call. Margaret, she said. My name is Margaret. She explained in broken pieces that she had gone out for a walk and become confused. It had happened before, more often now. As her breathing steadied, Malik noticed details. Her wedding ring was not flashy, but it looked old, heavy, and valuable. Her shoes were Italian leather, scuffed now but clearly expensive, probably worth more than Malik earned in a month. He did not mention any of it. It did not matter. Rich or poor, old or young. She needed help. That was enough. Malik asked Owen to call for assistance. Owen made the call. They waited. Slowly, color returned to Margaret's face. Her breathing became more even. The shivering returned, which Malik understood as a good sign. Her body was fighting again. Margaret reached out and took Malik's hand. This time, her grip was steady. Her eyes were clear. What's your name, sweetheart? Malik, ma'am. Malik Carter. Malik. She repeated it carefully, like she was placing the name somewhere important. You're a good young man. Malik did not know what to say, so he held her hand a little tighter. Margaret tried several times to repay him. Malik refused every time. Once her breathing had steadied, and her eyes were focused. She reached into an inside pocket of her coat and pulled out a folded $100 bill. Emergency cash. Crisp. The kind of money someone keeps for exactly the sort of problem she had just survived. She held it toward Malik. Please take this. You've done more than you know. Malik shook his head. I didn't help you for money, ma'am. I insist. Please. You gave me your last dollar. At least let me give you something back. No, ma'am. His answer was gentle, but firm. You needed help, that's all. Margaret studied him, not simply looking, studying, trying to understand how an 18-year-old who had so little could refuse money after giving away the last dollar in his pocket. She tried again. Then tell me how I can find you. Let me send you something. A proper thank you. Anything. Malik gently pulled his hand free. Honestly, ma'am, knowing you're all right is enough. I just hope somebody would do the same for my grandma if she ever needed help. Margaret's expression changed. Something deeper than gratitude moved through her eyes. She nodded once, slowly, as though she had just made a promise to herself. Then a black sedan pulled to the curb outside. Sleek, quiet, windows so dark, they reflected the gas station lights like polished glass. A driver in a dark suit stepped out. He moved with precision, not hurried, not casual. He entered the store, scanned the room, and immediately went to Margaret. Mrs. Langford, we've been looking for you. Not ma'am, not miss. Mrs. Langford. The name was spoken with a kind of practiced respect. The driver barely acknowledged Malik. He helped Margaret stand and took over with the efficiency of someone following a familiar emergency protocol. Margaret allowed him to help. But before she left, she turned back. Malik Carter. She said his full name slowly. I won't forget you. The driver escorted her into the sedan. The door closed with a soft click. The car disappeared into the night. Malik stood inside the gas station, watching through the window. I had never seen a car like that on his street. I had never seen a driver dressed that way. I had never heard someone's name spoken with that degree of deference. But he did not spend long thinking about it. People with money existed. They simply did not usually pass through Malik's world. He looked down. His hands were still trembling. His hoodie was gone. His dollar was gone. Ruth's bottled water was gone. And Margaret's handkerchief was still in his pocket. I had forgotten to return it. Malik walked home in the cold. No hoodie, no dollar, no bottle of water. The wind cut through his shirt. His teeth chattered, but something warm remained in his chest, something the cold could not reach. When he got home, Ruth was asleep. Malik filled a glass with tap water and set it beside her bed. He placed it down gently so the glass would not make noise against the nightstand. Then he pulled the blanket higher over her shoulders. Afterward, Malik sat on the porch. He reached into his pocket and took out the white handkerchief. His thumb moved across the gold initials. ML. I did not know what they meant. I did not know who Margaret Langford really was. He only knew she was safe. For him, that was enough. He folded the handkerchief neatly and placed it on the kitchen table. I would figure out how to return it. What Malik did not know was that he would not have to search very far. That night, he lay on the pull-out couch with the springs pressing into his back, and Ruth's oxygen concentrator humming in the next room. Everything looked the same, but his thoughts kept returning to the gas station, not to the moment Margaret nearly collapsed. That part was easy to understand. It was everything around it. The black sedan, the driver, the way he moved, the way he said Mrs. Langford, and Margaret herself. Even when she was frightened and confused, there had been something in her posture and voice that suggested a lifetime of authority. Malik picked up his old phone. The screen was cracked badly enough to turn half the display into a web of fractured glass. He typed Langford into a search bar. The page loaded slowly. He caught fragments. A company, New Orleans, a photograph that would not render clearly. Then the phone froze. Malik gave up. He connected it to the charger and rolled onto his back. The fragments stayed with him. A company, New Orleans, that silent car, that driver, and Margaret's quiet dignity. Eventually, exhaustion won. When Malik woke, life looked ordinary again. Oatmeal, cinnamon, pills, the acceptance letter on the refrigerator. He touched the paper with one finger, tied his shoes, and grabbed an old jacket from the back of a chair. His hoodie was gone now, given to a stranger. I was nearly out the door when Denise's voice carried across the fence. Baby, there's been a fancy car sitting down the block. You in some kind of trouble. Malik stepped off the porch. The same black sedan was parked several houses away. Engine running. Dark windows reflecting pale light. His stomach tightened. His thoughts jumped immediately to Brett Lawson. The phone. The threat to call police. Had somebody made a report after all? Had Margaret told the story differently once she got home? Malik stood on the porch, gripping the railing. I had spent most of his life being overlooked. Now somebody appeared to be watching for him. Then came a knock at the door. 3 firm, measured knocks. Not Andre's knock. Not a neighbor. Something formal. Malik looked through the peephole. What he saw did not make sense. He opened the door. A tall white man stood on the porch in a tailored charcoal suit. He appeared to be in his early 50s, silver beginning at his temples, clean-shaven, composed. Beside him stood a professional-looking woman with blonde hair pulled back neatly. She held a leather portfolio, and just behind them was Margaret. But not the Margaret from the curb, not the woman with blue lips and shaking hands. This Margaret was composed. Her hair was styled. A cashmere scarf rested around her shoulders. She stood straight. Her eyes were clear and bright. "Good morning, Malik." Malik blinked. "Ma'am." The man in the suit extended his hand. "Malik, my name is Harrison Langford. I'm Margaret's son." Malik shook his hand. The name meant nothing to him yet. Harrison spoke carefully. "I want to thank you for what you did for my mother." Malik said nothing. Harrison continued. "My mother has early-stage Alzheimer's disease. She wandered away from her care aide during an outing downtown. When we realized she was missing, we had people searching across the city, private security, local contacts, everyone we could reach." He paused. "You found her. You stayed with her. You gave her your last dollar." Malik opened his mouth, then closed it. Harrison continued. "I also think you should understand who my mother is, and who I am." Harrison Langford was the founder and chief executive officer of Langford Capital Group, a private equity and venture capital firm with a portfolio valued at more than $4 billion. Infrastructure, clean energy, real estate, technology. Its headquarters occupied offices in a glass tower in downtown New Orleans. Harrison's name had appeared in Forbes. His deals had influenced industries. And Margaret Langford, the elderly woman Malik had caught before she struck the concrete, the woman whose shoe he had placed back on her foot and whose hand he had held in a gas station, had spent 31 years as a federal judge. She had presided over major civil rights cases. She had been nominated twice for an appellate court. Before Alzheimer's disease began slowly stealing pieces of her memory, she had been considered one of the most respected legal minds in the Gulf South. Malik felt his legs weaken. $4 billion. A federal judge. The woman he had helped with his last dollar. I thought about the crumpled bill on Owen's counter, his hoodie around Margaret's shoulders, the way he had spoken to her softly, because she reminded him of Ruth. I had treated her like somebody's grandmother, because that was exactly what she was. I had not known anything else. I had not needed to. From behind him came Ruth's worried voice. "Malik, who are these people?" Margaret stepped forward. She took Ruth's hand in both of hers, not quickly, not politely. She held it with warmth. "Mrs. Carter, your grandson saved my life." Ruth looked at Margaret, then Harrison, then Malik. Her mouth opened. No words came. Harrison watched the exchange, then turned back toward Malik. His voice became quieter. "I watched the security footage from the gas station. All of it." Malik went still. "I saw you give her your hoodie. I watched you use your last dollar so she could take her medicine. I watched you stay with her. I watched you refuse her money more than once." Harrison paused. "And I saw the other part." The air on the porch changed. The man who blocked the doorway. The man who accused you while you were holding my mother upright. The phone coming out. The threat to call police. Malik said nothing. His jaw tightened. The fear from that moment returned quickly. Harrison's voice remained steady, but his eyes showed something deeper. "I saw you stand there and take all of that, and instead of letting my mother fall so you could protect yourself, you held on to her." He paused. "You chose her safety when you believed staying might put you at risk. That's not only kindness, Malik. That's courage." Harrison reached into his coat. In his hand was the white handkerchief with the gold initials. ML. "My father gave this to my mother on their wedding day. She has carried it for more than 50 years. You picked it up. You kept it safe. You intended to return it." Harrison placed the handkerchief carefully on the porch railing. "That tells me what I need to know about your character." Now the pieces made sense. Margaret's calm under pressure. Her quiet authority, 31 years on a federal bench, had shaped the way she carried herself. Even Alzheimer's disease had not erased all of it. The black sedan made sense too. Harrison's private security team had been sent out as soon as Margaret was located. The car, the driver, the way everyone spoke to her. Every detail Malik had noticed had been a clue. He simply had not known what story the clues belonged to. Harrison looked directly at him. In my world, people often help because they expect something in return. You helped when you believed you had something to lose. But Harrison had not come all that way only to say thank you. I had come with a plan. May we come inside? Malik stepped back, still trying to understand what was happening. Harrison, the woman with the portfolio, whose name was Julia Mercer, and Margaret entered the small living room. The faded floral couch, the crocheted doily, covering a burn mark left by a former tenant. The oxygen concentrator humming from the next room. Two very different worlds stood inside the same small space. Ruth looked embarrassed. She smoothed the front of her housecoat. She started to apologize for the condition of the house. Margaret sat beside her and took her hand again. Mrs. Carter, this home raised a remarkable young man. There is nothing to apologize for. Ruth pressed her lips together. Her eyes filled. Julia placed the leather portfolio on the coffee table. Harrison leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. I did not speak to Malik like a billionaire addressing someone who needed charity. He spoke to him like one person speaking seriously to another. I looked into your situation, Malik. Not because I wanted to invade your privacy. I wanted to understand who you are. Malik sat very still. I know about the community. College acceptance. I know about the pre-engineering program. I know about the letter on your refrigerator. Malik's jaw tightened. That letter. The one he touched every morning. Someone else had seen it. Someone else understood what it meant. And I know you could not afford to go. The room became quiet. The refrigerator rattled softly. Ruth's oxygen concentrator hummed. The ordinary sounds of a home being held together by love, discipline, and not enough money. Harrison leaned forward. Here's what I want to offer you, and I want to make one thing very clear. This is not charity. This is not a handout. I am not doing this because I feel sorry for you. He paused. I am investing in the person you have already shown yourself to be. First, Harrison offered Malik a full 4-year scholarship to Louisiana State University's College of Engineering. Tuition, housing, books, a monthly living stipend. The money would not come from an anonymous foundation or a committee. Harrison would fund it personally. You earned this opportunity, Malik, he said. Second, Malik would receive a guaranteed paid internship with Langford Capital Group every summer. I would work with the Infrastructure and Clean Energy Division. Real projects, real construction sites, real engineering problems, real mentors, not filing papers somewhere in the back of an office. Building things. Exactly the kind of work Malik had been drawing in that worn composition notebook since he was 14. Harrison looked at him. I don't need somebody who only looks impressive on paper. I need people who think in useful ways. Then came the third offer, the one that broke open the room. A home health aide for Ruth 3 days every week, fully covered. Her insulin, her medications, her medical supplies, all of it handled through the Langford family's health trust. Not temporarily. For as long as Ruth needed the help, Harrison looked toward her. Your grandmother raised a remarkable young man. The least I can do is make sure she has support while he goes and becomes who he is capable of becoming. The room went silent. Malik did not cry immediately. First, he went completely still, like his body had no instruction for what to do with news that large. Then his hands began to tremble. His chin lowered. His shoulders folded forward. Ruth broke first. She covered her mouth with both hands. Tears ran freely down her face. Years of counting pills. Years of counting dollars. Years of trying to make impossible numbers work for one more month. Oh, Lord, she whispered. Oh, sweet Lord. Margaret reached across and held Ruth's hand. 2 grandmothers. 2 lives separated by money, history, neighborhoods, and opportunity. Connected because an 18-year-old boy spent his last dollar on someone he did not know. Malik finally spoke. His voice was thick. I don't know how to thank you, sir. Harrison looked at him. You already did. At the gas station, Julia spoke gently and asked Malik what he liked to build, what interested him, what problems he thought about. Malik hesitated. Then he reached into his back pocket and pulled out the composition notebook. Bent cover, water stains, rubber band around the middle. He placed it on the coffee table as if he were embarrassed by it. These aren't professional, they're just ideas. Harrison picked up the notebook. He turned the pages slowly. Engine designs, suspension modifications, the sprinkler nozzle, page after page of a mind working intensely without equipment, money, mentors, or an audience. Then Harrison stopped on one page. He studied it. It was a water filtration system Malik had designed after thinking about problems in his own neighborhood. Contaminated pipes, inconsistent pressure, families losing access to reliable clean water during boil advisories. The drawing was rough. The thinking was not. It was practical, inventive, real. Harrison looked up. This. He touched the page. This is exactly the kind of thinking we invest in. He closed the notebook and returned it to Malik. But he returned it differently, not as though it were a child's hobby, as though it had value. You're not behind, Malik. You've been thinking ahead this whole time. You just didn't have anyone to show it to. Malik held the notebook in both hands. The same notebook Andre had teased him about. The same notebook Malik hid in his pocket every day, because almost no one took it seriously. Now someone had looked carefully, and what happened next did not change only Malik's life. It began changing the neighborhood around him. When Malik eventually walked onto the campus of Louisiana State University, he carried a new backpack over his shoulders. The first new backpack he had ever owned. He stopped outside the College of Engineering building and looked up. For a while, he simply stood there, letting the moment become real. Inside his first lecture hall, Malik placed the worn composition notebook on a desk. Beside it, he set down a real engineering textbook. For the first time, the world he had imagined and the world he was actually living occupied the same space. Malik did more than survive college. He thrived. Professors noticed him, not only his ability, his work ethic. He stayed after class. He asked another question when everyone else was packing up. I went to office hours, not because he was falling behind, but because he wanted to understand more. He built when other students were still talking about building. One professor eventually stopped him and asked where he had learned to think the way he did. Malik smiled. A car wash near Highway 61. The professor did not understand. Malik did. When his first internship with Langford Capital Group arrived, Malik reported to the infrastructure division. Hard hat, steel toe boots, clean energy construction sites, planning meetings, real engineering teams. At first, Malik spoke carefully. Then, confidence followed experience. Engineers twice his age began asking what he thought. Not to make the scholarship student feel included, because his ideas were useful. He earned their respect through the work, not through sympathy, not through the story that had made him visible. Through the work. Malik called Ruth every night. You eating, baby? Yes, Grandma. This time when he answered, he was not lying. Ruth was doing better. Her home health aide, Miss Carolyn, had become more than a caretaker. She became someone Ruth trusted, someone who talked with her through long afternoons, someone who made sure the pills were taken correctly, checked her blood sugar, and prepared food that was still warm when Ruth sat down to eat. For the first time in years, Ruth's health stabilized, not because her illnesses disappeared, because she was no longer fighting them alone. Then the story became larger than Malik. Harrison Langford had spent time thinking about what happened to his mother, and about what nearly happened to Malik while he was helping her. He created the Carter Langford Community Fund. The name mattered. Not only Langford, not only the billionaire, Carter Langford, because both families belonged in the story. The fund offered emergency scholarships to students in Malik's zip code, students who had already earned admission to programs they could not afford. Young people staring at acceptance letters the way Malik once stared at his. The fund also started a free science, technology, engineering, and mathematics program at the local community center. Louisiana State University engineering students volunteered there. Children who had never touched engineering equipment suddenly had people showing them how things worked. The fund partnered with a regional health network to open a subsidized clinic. Insulin, chronic disease care, preventive treatment, help for residents without insurance. Local news eventually picked up the story. Reporter Rachel Daniels produced a segment called "The Dollar That Changed a Neighborhood." The piece spread far beyond Baton Rouge. People shared it thousands of times. Many wrote that this was what kindness looked like. Others wrote that they could not believe how much Malik had given when he had so little. An old school counselor named Edwin Parker called Malik. Edwin had once told him that engineering might not be realistic. Now he called to apologize. Malik listened. There was no victory speech, no bitterness. "No, I told you so. Thank you, sir. I appreciate the call." That was all. Forward. Always forward. Then there was Andre. Andre had scrubbed cars beside Malik for $6.50 an hour. Andre had laughed about the notebook. Andre had never imagined a path beyond the car wash because nobody around him had shown him one. He enrolled in a vocational welding program, one of the early programs supported by the Carter Langford Community Fund. He became the first person in his family to pursue formal technical training. The day he enrolled, Andre sent Malik a message. "Man, the engineer and the welder. We made it." Denise Porter, the neighbor who had always asked Malik whether he had eaten, became a volunteer coordinator at the community center. A reporter asked her what she thought about everything that had happened. Her eyes filled with tears. "That boy always had something special," she said. "We all knew it. We just couldn't give him what he needed. Somebody finally could." Other students from Malik's high school received scholarships. Other futures reopened. Other lives changed direction. All because a young man with $1 in his pocket had stopped at a gas station when everybody else kept moving. Much later, Malik returned to that same gas station on another cold evening. This time, he drove himself. A used Honda Civic he had bought with money from his internship. He parked near the pumps and sat with both hands resting on the steering wheel. His eyes moved toward the curb near the air pump, the same concrete where Margaret had been sitting. The same place where her lips had turned blue and her hand reached for him. The fluorescent lights still made the same quiet hum. Everything looked familiar, and almost nothing in Malik's life was the same. He walked inside. Owen Becker was still behind the counter. Owen looked up. Confusion, then recognition, then something that looked like embarrassment. "Hey, I know you. You're that kid from the news." Malik smiled. "Yeah, that's me." He placed 2 bottles of water on the counter and handed Owen a $5 bill. "Keep the change." Owen looked at the money. Neither of them said anything about the other dollar from the night Margaret nearly died. They did not need to. Something passed between them. Recognition, memory, maybe regret. Later, Malik and Ruth went to the Langford home for Thanksgiving dinner. Margaret had invited them personally. It did not feel like a public relations gesture. It had become a family tradition. 2 families separated by almost every line people used to divide one another were now sitting at the same table because an 18-year-old had once decided that a stranger's life mattered more than the last dollar in his pocket. Before dinner, Malik found Margaret in the garden. She was having a clear day. Present. Focused. Soft light caught the silver in her hair while she touched the petals of a camellia as though trying to memorize the feeling. "Mrs. Langford." Margaret turned and smiled. Malik reached inside his jacket. He pulled out the white handkerchief. Gold initials. Clean. Pressed. Protected carefully all this time. "I've been meaning to return this." Margaret accepted it. Her fingers traced the letters ML. The same way Malik's fingers had traced them when he sat alone on his porch. Then she folded the handkerchief once and handed it back. "Keep it, Malik. You've earned something to carry that reminds you where you've been." Malik placed it inside his jacket, over his heart. They walked into the house together. At the Thanksgiving table, Ruth and Margaret sat beside one another, laughing like old friends. Harrison and Malik talked about clean energy. Andre was there too, telling a story with both hands and making everyone laugh. In the center of the table sat Denise's sweet potato pie. Underneath it was a handwritten note. "Eat up, baby. The light through the windows was warm. Outside, the air was cold and clean. $1. One stranger. One decision made when nobody watching could promise Malik anything in return. That was all it took to reveal something people often forget. Who you are, when there is nothing to gain, may be the clearest picture of who you really are. Malik had almost nothing that night. He gave what he had anyway, not because a camera was waiting, not because he knew Margaret's son was a billionaire, not because he expected college tuition, an internship, medical care for Ruth, or a community fund carrying his family name. He gave because a woman was cold, frightened, and in danger. He was there. He could help. So he helped. That is what makes the story matter. The reward is not the lesson. Most acts of kindness do not end with a billionaire at the door. Most good deeds do not become news stories. Nobody may ever know that you stayed late, gave up something you needed, defended someone who was being misunderstood, or stopped when everyone else walked past. Sometimes kindness comes back to you. Sometimes it does not. Its value cannot depend on the return. Malik's last dollar mattered before Harrison Langford ever learned his name. It mattered at the moment Malik placed it on the counter. The hoodie mattered before anyone knew Margaret had been a federal judge. The hand holding her upright mattered before a security camera proved what happened. And Malik's character mattered before anyone important decided to reward it. There is another lesson in the moment with Brett Lawson. Fear and assumption can make people misunderstand what they see. Brett saw a young black man holding an elderly white woman and built a story before asking a careful question. Owen had a choice, too. For a moment, he stayed behind the glass and watched. Then he spoke. The sentence was simple. The kid's been helping her. Those few words changed the direction of the moment. That is worth remembering. Sometimes doing the right thing means stepping forward to help. Sometimes it means refusing to leave someone who needs you. And sometimes it means being the witness who calmly tells the truth when another person is being judged unfairly. Courage does not always sound brave. It may sound like, "I saw what happened." It may sound like, "Leave him alone." It may sound like, "She's freezing. Please let me get her inside." Malik's story is also about responsibility. Ruth had spent years giving him everything she could. She did not have wealth. She had discipline, love, a home that barely held together, cinnamon in oatmeal, a voice that taught him that helping another person was part of being alive. When Malik stopped for Margaret, part of Ruth stopped with him. Kindness travels that way. One person teaches it, another person carries it, a stranger receives it, then sometimes that stranger sends it somewhere else. Harrison could have thanked Malik with money and disappeared. Instead, he looked at the larger problem. A talented young man had been accepted into school and could not afford to go. A grandmother was getting sicker because care cost more than the family could pay. Other students in the same neighborhood were facing the same closed doors. Other families were rationing medicine. The most meaningful part of Harrison's response was not that he rewarded Malik. It was that he paid attention. He listened closely enough to understand what Malik actually needed. Then he turned gratitude into opportunity. Opportunity into education. Education into work. And one family's story into a fund that helped other families too. That is what generosity can look like when it respects the person receiving it. Not pity. Not showing off. Not making somebody feel small so the giver can feel large. Harrison told Malik clearly that he was not a charity case. He called the scholarship an investment. That distinction mattered because Malik already had ability. He already had discipline. He already had ideas. The missing piece was access. Someone finally opened a door that talent alone could not force open. And Malik did the rest. He studied. He worked. He asked questions. He earned the respect of engineers. He kept calling Ruth. He never forgot Andre. He never forgot Denise. He never forgot the neighborhood that shaped the problems he wanted to solve. Success did not require him to erase where he came from. It gave him more ways to serve it. There is something else in the story that deserves attention. Malik refused Margaret's $100 bill. That does not mean accepting help is wrong. Sometimes accepting help is the bravest and wisest thing a person can do. Malik later accepted Harrison's scholarship, the internship, and support for Ruth. The difference was purpose. At the gas station, Malik did not want his act of kindness turned into a transaction. He wanted Margaret to understand that her life had value before she offered anything back. Later, when Harrison offered opportunity with respect, Malik allowed someone else to help him. There is dignity in giving. There can also be dignity in receiving. None of us gets through life completely alone. Ruth helped Malik. Malik helped Margaret. Harrison helped Malik. Miss Carolyn helped Ruth. Malik's story helped Andre imagine another path. The community fund helped students Malik had never met. Each person became part of somebody else's bridge. That may be one of the warmest truths in this story. You do not have to save the whole world. You may never have enough money to fix every problem. You may be tired yourself. You may be carrying responsibilities nobody can see. But there will be moments when something small is within your reach. A bottle of water, a phone call, a truthful sentence, aride, a meal, a few minutes of attention, a chance offered to someone whose talent has been overlooked. Those things may look small from the outside. To the person who needs them, they may be everything. And when someone is kind to you, you do not have to repay the exact person in the exact same way. Sometimes the best response is to carry that kindness forward. Give someone else a chance. Open another door. Listen when it would be easier to dismiss. Speak when silence would leave someone alone. Forgiveness belongs here too. Malik had reasons to be bitter. About the mother who left. About customers who treated him as invisible. About the counselor who doubted him. About Brett's accusation. About Owen staying behind the glass until the situation became serious. Malik did not pretend those things never happened. He simply refused to build his future around resentment. When the counselor apologized, Malik accepted the call and moved forward. When he returned to the gas station, he did not humiliate Owen. He bought 2 bottles of water and left the change. That quiet choice said more than an angry speech could have. Forgiveness does not mean saying harm was acceptable. It does not require forgetting. It can simply mean refusing to let another person's worst choice decide what kind of person you become. The same is true of responsibility. When we get something wrong, we may not be able to undo the moment, but we can admit it. We can listen. We can behave differently the next time. We can become the person who steps forward instead of the person who looks away. Malik was not kind because he was certain kindness would be rewarded. He was kind because another human being needed him. That is why his story stays with people. Not the billionaire, not the scholarship, not the $4 billion company. The dollar, the water, the hoodie, the hand that did not let go. Those were the choices that mattered before anyone knew how the story would end. So if you remember anything from Malik Carter, remember this. Do not wait until you know someone's title before you care about them. Do not wait until a camera appears before you do the right thing. Do not assume that because you have little, you have nothing to give. And do not assume that needing help makes you weak. Some of the strongest people in this story were strong because they allowed someone else to stand beside them. Ruth spent years holding Malik up. Malik held Margaret up when her legs failed. Harrison used his resources to hold open a door Malik had already earned the right to walk through. Then, Malik and Harrison built something that helped other people stand too. That is how a single act becomes larger than itself. Not through magic, through choices, through responsibility, through people deciding that someone else's struggle matters. If you've ever helped someone when it cost you something, you probably understand that the most important part often happens quietly. There may be no applause, no thank you, no reward, but you still know what choice you made, and you still have to live with the person that choice helped you become. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs a reminder that people like Malik still exist. Like the story. If you want more stories about courage, kindness, dignity, responsibility, and second chances, subscribe if you want to keep hearing them. And if you have ever helped someone without knowing whether anyone would notice, tell that story in the comments. Maybe somebody else needs to hear it. Because kindness does not need a receipt. You do not do good only because somebody is watching. A billionaire may never appear at your door. Your name may never be on the news. Nothing dramatic may happen afterward. But who you are when you have little, when nobody is promising you anything, and when another person still needs you, that matters. It may be the truest measure of character we ever get. Be kind when you can. Accept help when you need it. Take responsibility when you are wrong. Give people room to become more than the circumstances you first meet them in. And when life puts someone in front of you who is frightened, tired, overlooked, or struggling, remember that you may not be able to fix everything. Sometimes you only need to do the next decent thing. For Malik, it was one bottle of water. That was enough to begin changing everything.